Good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss chapter 8 diseases and first aid. And this chapter you already learned and you know that what are the contents are included in this topic. So let's learn. Let's revise what are the topics are here. First topic is disease. We know that disease is an abnormal condition of an organism. Disease is an abnormal condition of an organism and the diseases that interrupts the normal body function of an organism. Then what are the reasons for the diseases? We know that the other topics are mentioned here: vectors, vaccine, vaccination, immunization, first aid. Then what are the definitions of these and what are the explanation of these all the topics.
So in this chapter, diseases and first aid, we are going to revise the topics that's mentioned in this slide. Listen. First is diseases. And you know that what is the definition of diseases and what are the two types of diseases and what are the causative organisms of communicable diseases and how to prevent these diseases. Then natural defense or immunity, vaccination and immunization, unhealthy habits, first aid. So let's revise. First is disease. That means a disease is an abnormal condition of an organism. And we know that this abnormal condition will cause different kinds of normal imbalance of our body functions. Then on the basis of this communicability, this disease is again that's divided into two types: communicable diseases and non-communicable disease. You already learned in this chapter the detail of communicable diseases. And we know that this communicable diseases that can spread from an infected person to a healthy person. And this infection is happening through unhealthy surroundings, through air, water, food, and other organisms. Then different kinds of examples of different kinds of communicable diseases are here: malaria, influenza, measles, dengue, chikungunya, and HIV. These all diseases are coming in the category of communicable diseases. That means these diseases can spread from an infected person to a healthy person. And this infection is happening through unhealthy surroundings and different modes of transference is also mentioned in the chapter. The next topic, vectors also there. Vectors means vectors are disease carriers, and mainly that microorganisms are vectors and they are carrying pathogens like microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and this carriers that's carrying pathogens that's reaching inside of their body, and from that the body of vectors that will be transmit to the other person through the bite and like that. For example, malaria, that in case of malaria, that mosquito is acting as a vector. And next topic is sanitization. Sanitization is also related term, and proper sanitation and hygienic conditions is needed, or that is must to prevent different kinds of communicable diseases. And how we can prevent these different kinds of diseases. A vaccine is an injection, and this injection that stimulates the body, and that stimulates the body of a immune system, and that will protect the person against different kinds of diseases or infectious diseases. So now also we are suffering the same, that means COVID-19, the same vaccination process is going on, and that small dose of vaccine, that means 1, 2, 3 like that doses are there, and this will help the body, and that will stimulate the body's immune system, and that will protect the person against this disease. So the detail of this chapters and what are the topics are mentioned here. Vaccination. Vaccination means that is available is in the medical field. We can take prevention against different kinds of infectious diseases. For example, in this chapter, that's included different diseases and their vaccination process, and the diseases like that tuberculosis, smallpox, cholera, polio, whooping cough, tetanus, and influenza. So before that, going to the explanation of these all the topics, first we are going to the main topic of the chapter, that means the two types of diseases. That means on the basis of communicability, diseases can be divided mainly two types. You already know that. And the two types of diseases are communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. And we know that this communicable diseases are harmful, and non-communicable diseases that will not transfer from one person to another or transferred from person to person, but this communicable diseases that are transmitted to a healthy person to a diseased person. And this transfer of infection that occur the biotic medium, that means the transfer of this diseases, communicable diseases, through some medium, that means microorganisms are acting as a medium for this transference, and the microorganisms are bacteria, viruses, and like that. Then communicable diseases are that the examples are mentioned here: malaria, influenza, and chickenpox. And the types of communicable diseases also there, that is depending how they are spread. That means depending on how they are spread, the communicable diseases are many types. And the types of communicable diseases, then we know that sometimes these diseases are spreading through the unhealthy surroundings. For example, contaminated water, then contaminated food, and carrier organisms also will spread that, then physical contact, body fluid, and sometimes through the animal bites. So according to this is again divided. Different types of diseases are there. Airborne diseases. Airborne diseases means the diseases that spreading through the contaminated air. For example, tuberculosis, TB. Then that means the chances of this disease that can be reduced if cover our nose or mouth while we are sneezing or coughing. Otherwise, the tiny droplets of this disease, that means the disease affecting persons, that will sneeze, or the person will sneeze or cough, then automatically the chances will be there. The airborne, that means the tuberculosis will be spread through the air. Then waterborne diseases, the same like that. This is spreading through the contaminated water. That means dirty water. For example, the diseases like typhoid, cholera, hepatitis are the examples of waterborne diseases. The next is foodborne disease. Foodborne disease that are caused by eating unclean fruits and vegetables. That means consumption of stale or rotten or unhygienically stored food that will cause food poisoning. Then direct or indirect contact, then body fluid and animal bites. These are the other causes of transmission of communicable diseases. And table 9.2 is there in the book. That is very important for that. That means the disease, and I think here 6 diseases are mentioned here: malaria, influenza, measles, dengue, chikungunya, and HIV. and we need to learn what are the causative agent of these all the diseases, how these are transmit, that means mode of transmission of this disease, and what are the symptoms we can see there, and how to prevent this disease. So these all the topics are included in this table. That's important. And prevention of diseases, how we can prevent, preventive measures also mentioned there, how to prevent this communicable disease. That means we need to avoid that uncovered food. Then we need always try to drink uh, pure water. Then fruits and vegetables must be washed before they are eaten. Then we should cover our nose and mouth whenever we will sneeze or cough. Then so these are the preventive measures. Then the natural defense or immunity is already in our body. That means our immune system is produces special proteins. That proteins known as antibodies, and this antibodies always preventing the diseases. Then immunity, natural immunity, inherited and acquired immunity also mentioned there. Inherited immunity means by birth we are getting that. That means that inherited immunity is always helping to fight against diseases. Then acquired immunity means that we can acquire through the immunization process. That's called acquired immunity. Then vaccination and immunization is there. Vaccine means a preventive measure. I repeat, vaccine means a preventive measure that is given before the occurrence of a disease. Then the next word is vaccination. Vaccination means the practice of introduction of a vaccine into the body. That's called vaccination. Then unhealthy habits is mentioned there, and what are the harmful effects of consuming alcohol. Then what are the effects of drug abuse. Then what is first aid? First aid is the last topic that is mentioned in the chapter, and we are going to revise that topic now. First aid. What's the definition of first aid? First aid is an immediate help that we can give unto a person before formal treatment in case of an accident or in sudden illness. I repeat, first aid is an immediate help that we can give unto another person before formal treatment. That means before reaching to the hospital. And this is needed in case of an accident or in a sudden illness will happen. So first aid, if for example, that in cases of that, in some of the cases mentioned in the chapter, in what are the cases first aid is needed? For bleeding. In case of profuse bleeding, that we can give first aid there. Then animal bites. Animal bites also, we know that we should thoroughly wash the wounded part with the soap. Then after that, we need to take the victim to the physician, to the hospital. Then snake bites also, same, snake bites. And next one, stings. Stings means that is mainly this is happening for the insect bites. Then burns. What is the first aid of burn? Then fracture. Fracture means it's a breaking of bone due to the fall or an accident. Then sometimes we know that the bones shift from the joints. That's called a dislocation. Dislocation of bones. So dislocation of bones or in fracture, we can give a first aid to the person. Then poisoning. Poisoning means in case of a person that has consumed any kind of poisonous substance, we can give the person to milk or water because of to induce vomiting, try to induce vomiting. That is a first aid of a poisoning. Then unconsciousness. We know that unconsciousness occurs as in a sudden that's happening. So that means a sudden brief drop in blood supply. That is, the brain will not get a proper oxygen on that time. Then loosen his clothes. The person's clothes we need to loosen, and we need to show that the person is getting a fresh air. Then sprinkle some water on his face. So these are the first aid of unconsciousness. Then The last one is mentioned here, foreign bodies in the eye. We know that sometimes the foreign bodies are coming inside of our body. So we need to remove that we need to remove lightly touching with a small piece of cotton. Then we need to wrap the cotton and easier, or we can remove that the foreign bodies from the eye. Then otherwise this is not possible, then we need to use an eye wash. And we know that normally doctors are using boric acid is an eye wash, and these methods are not successful. Then for removing foreign body, then the person we need to take to the physician at once. So these are the main topics mentioned here, and activity 5 is also there, that is important. This is already given in the form of holiday homework. And activity, what was the aim of that activity, that is mentioned in page number 144. To prepare, how to prepare a first aid box, and what are the things is needed, what are the things is needed in a first aid box. And we know that many things are mentioned here. And sterilized cotton, bandages, small glass, dropper, scissor, and list. These things, the list of these things is also important. So in addition to all these things, no, you should keep some basic medicines also in the first aid box. So this is the last topic. I repeat, first aid, that is an immediate help that we can give to a person before formal treatment in case of an accident or in sudden illness. So I'm going to wind up this session. Bye.